It's Leonie and Eugene from S. and Curry, and today Paul Oxley from GOSA is joining us to talk about the Firearms Amendment Bill of 2021. So thank you, Paul, for joining us today and having this discussion.
Great pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
We have prepared a few questions for Paul about this Firearms Amendment Bill, and today's purpose is to actually make it so that anyone can understand what's happening with this bill, so that it's not a lot of terms and terminologies we don't understand. So we're going to try and keep it simple for everyone to understand. So my first question is, I've just heard this hype about the government that want to take away the firearms. I don't even have a gun, so why should I care?
Okay, so events seem to have answered that question for us, don't you think? In the last 48 hours from KZN to Gauteng, I don't think there's very many people that are dithering about why civilians should own firearms anymore. The videos that we're seeing, and I mean everybody's seeing it. I mean our social media is full of it, of all the events of rioters and people running down the streets and stuff. And now, as of yesterday, communities starting to take the defense of their suburbs seriously, and they're starting to come out and say, look, you're not going to loot my suburb. You're not going to. I want to buy my bread and milk tomorrow morning from the shop that you're about to burn down. And they're starting to drive the people back. And a lot of the guys are running up with hockey sticks and stuff like that and baseball bats. And, that's all very good and well. But it only goes so far. The rioters then come back with pangas and they come back with firearms and stuff. And then you're in trouble. So I don't think anybody's really seriously taking the line at the moment that everyone should sit back and wait for the police to solve the problems, because it's quite obvious the police can't. In fact, the police can't even solve their own problems. Yesterday, private security had to organize ammunition resupplies for the police. They had to go and buy the ammunition on their credit cards and send it down to KZN for the police, because the police had run out of ammo.
Sure.
And they were about to be overrun. So I think even the minister at the moment is waffling a lot on during his press briefing. He was put on the spot by Barry Bateman about it on the NCA, and the police minister is waffling about, oh no, but the people mustn't take the law into their own hands, but they must join hands with the police and they must help to defend. Yeah, dude, how do we do that if we don't have access to firearms? So I think it's not just about those people that own firearms. It's about our civilization. It's about our communities. It's about our way of life. It's about the rule of law. It's about being able to go and buy bread and milk in the morning from the shop. Yeah. Everybody should care about it, because that's what it's about.
Yeah, I think it went from a self-defense conversation to, can I actually go buy bread and milk in the morning?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. So that changed quite a bit. So yeah. What is this Firearms Amendment Bill of 2021? What does it entail? What is it?
So there's been a lot of talk for many years about the current Firearms Control Act not being sufficient, because it's failing. It's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's touted as a crime control measure, although nowhere in the current act, nowhere in the proposed bill is any reference made to firearms used for unlawful purposes. Okay, so the whole act and the whole bill is directed at lawful firearm owners, not criminals. So how they expected an act that controls lawful firearm ownership to have any impact on crime statistics it's magical thinking. It's castrating yourself because your neighbor has too many kids. It's madness. It doesn't compute. It doesn't make sense. So when the police have held the Firearms Control Act up as a crime fighting measure, which it never was, and it isn't. So they, in 2014, after the Senzo Mayiwa murder, they started making noise about tightening the Firearms Control Act, because that will deal crime a blow. Because they'd been told by dishonest people such as Gun Free South Africa and various researchers, the Medical Research Council, the Red Cross Children's Hospital, the Institute for Security Studies, a whole bunch of crooks, told them that less guns equals less crime. And so they approached they wanted to redo the Firearms Control Act at that stage. So what they did is they appointed Wits School of Governance to do a proper study into the links between the Firearms Control Act and the crime statistics. And the research came back to them, and they kept it secret. They kept it secret until 2 weeks ago. Literally kept it secret. They suppressed it. They wouldn't talk about it. They wouldn't release it, and eventually it came out as a result of a promotion of access to information request, and they had to release it. And the problem is the research found exactly the opposite of what the police wanted it to show. The research came out and said that the Firearms Control Act has virtually nothing to do with the crime rate. Certainly nothing to do with combating the crime rate or suppressing the crime rate. In fact, the only thing that really makes an impact on the crime rate is intensive policing. And the FCA, the Firearms Control Act, is no solution at all. So obviously that didn't please the police. In fact, in the introduction to the conclusion on this report, on this 160-page report from the Wits School of Governance, the authors actually say, we're afraid that the party, the civil secretary of police who contracted this job from us, we're afraid that they're not going to like very much what we're about to say. So and they obviously didn't. So they then started cobbling together. The police removed certain out of context quotes out of the Wits School of Governance report, because the Wits School of Governance report is their research. So they removed certain phrases out of there, which they took out of context. And then they did Google searches, a desktop study, literally. They sat behind a desk like I'm sitting behind a desk now. They typed into Google, how do we, crime stats and stuff like this. And they cobbled together what they call their command management report, which is a mashup. It's a little bit of the Wits School of Governance report and a lot of other rubbish from all over the world. And from Gun Free South Africa, from the briefing documents that Gun Free South Africa manages to get to the police, and all sorts of things. Whole bunch of lies. The whole 4 times more likely lie that we heard the minister trumpeting again the other night. Anyway, so they cobbled together this thing, and they said, okay, well, now this justifies this bill. And then they had to go and do a socioeconomic impact assessment report, as for all new legislations from 2015. And they created a socio-economic impact assessment report to back up the conclusions of this Firearm Control Amendment Bill. So this thing's been sitting in the wings for 6 years. They brought it out now, and we forced out the documents now. We, the firearms community, we've got PI requests in. We just got a response to one of our Promotion of Access to Information Act requests now. The Dealers Association, Safe Citizen Campaign, everybody's forcing PI requests and through at the moment. And the police have had to come clean now and have had to say, well, okay, this is what we based this on. And it's absolute rubbish. It's the Wits School of Governance report actually specifically states that as the firearm ownership rate has been slowly but surely ticking downwards over the years, the crime rate has gone up. So what they're trying to say to us, less guns equals less crime, it's actually quite the opposite. It's less guns, more crime. And the corollary to that is more guns, less crime. So, which is what we've been saying the whole time. So the Wits School of Governance report digs a big bloody hole underneath the police, and they fall into it. And there's no getting out of that, because that's what the research says. You can lie about as much as you like about the results of the research, but you can't hide the actual facts. Once you have the actual facts, they stand on their own feet. And this is what the facts actually do in this case. So we're quite happy that this amendment bill, this horrific amendment bill, which aimed to remove self-defense as a reason for owning a firearm. We can see over the last week how well that would have worked. Limiting firearm owners to 100 rounds of ammunition instead of 200 rounds of ammunition. So people wouldn't be able to supply the police the way they have in the last week with ammunition, so they can carry on defending themselves and defending the South African public. They would take away, they would remove the whole category of private collecting, which guards our heritage. I mean, we've got, and it's not just white heritage. It's the entire country's heritage. It's the war of the gun in the Eastern Cape between the Basotho and the Cape settlers, where the Cape provincial government introduced the first firearms control law in South Africa, called the Peace Preservation Act, to try to remove firearms from the Basotho. So it's our heritage. It's all of our heritage. And it's very important. So there's a whole bunch of other things that's going to, if you remove the reason of self-defense as a reason for owning a firearm, then there's no rationale for security companies to have firearms anymore. And where would we be without that? Maybe we should ask the Minister of Defense, who went on a rampage against the private security companies last night on TV because they didn't protect the shopping malls.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. I heard that.
The private security have a duty to protect the shopping malls, and the South African Defence Force doesn't. The South African Police don't. Give me a break. But so they're trying to take away the reason of self-defense. That impacts everybody. That impacts all our private security. It actually impacts the police themselves, because the only reason a policeman carries a firearm is for protection, to protect himself and to protect the people. And if you're no longer able to protect the people because there's no longer a reason, then they shouldn't have firearms either. See how well that works. Anyway, so this whole thing is a complete disaster. It's every statist dictator's dream to get a piece of legislation like this through. But I don't think they're going to get it right. I think the tide of history has turned against them.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, so is the bill constitutional in its right, or is it similar to the case of the book Animal Farm, where Becky Cele is disarming citizens, but increasing the VIP protection budget? Almost have to say all people are equal, but some are more equal than others.
Way more equal, yeah. No, absolutely right. So this touches on this whole issue that we've been talking about for years, where Judge Froneman made that unfortunate overture remark in the Constitutional Court about firearm ownership not being a right in South Africa, but being a privilege. And it's important to take that into context as well. Okay, so let's talk about this particular bill first. So let me answer that question first, then I'll get to the bigger question. So because this bill has had no Section 195 of the Constitution consultation with the stakeholders, no, the bill is not constitutional. It's never going to fly. It can't fly. We had the Secretary of Police, the Civilian Secretary of Police, Mr. Alvin Rapier, on the phone to one of our attorneys 2 weeks ago, admitting that they made a huge mistake. They should have consulted with the people first. I mean, they know they've blown it. They know that the cat's out the bag now. We found where all the bodies are buried. Nobody's going to come out of this looking good. Not on their side. Anyway, so no, it's not constitutional the way it's been put forward. However, that's not to say that it's not going to go through. It's so let's get to the bigger constitutional question. The bigger constitutional question is: is firearm ownership a right in South Africa? No, firearm ownership is not recognized by the Constitution. Remember, the Constitution only recognizes rights. The Constitution doesn't grant us rights. It's not in the power of government to grant us rights. We have rights as a natural. The rights which we have are our natural rights. They're rights which we have by virtue of being born. By virtue of being born, you have certain natural rights. The primary natural right is the right to life. That then automatically gives you the right to defend your life.
No.
Having the right to defend your life is meaningless without the means to defend your life. So we claim that we have a right to anything that will help us to defend our lives. The fact that it's not specified in the Constitution is immaterial. The Constitution doesn't specify that you have a right to buy a Toyota motor car either, but you have that right. The Constitution doesn't specify that you have a right to put a swimming pool in at your home if you can afford one, but you have that right. So the Constitution doesn't specify most of our lives. It doesn't specify that you're allowed to eat biltong. You know, to reduce it to an absurdity. It's so the Constitution doesn't. We don't. There's two schools of law. There's something called natural law, which is what we all have naturally, and there's something called positive law. And we find that the positive law is a I don't want to say it's a socialist type of imposition, but it's a concept that's been developed in America, strangely enough, by some of the leftist loony college professors, people like Barbara Frey, the person who gave birth to the South African Firearms Control Act, by the way, was an American by the name of Barbara Frey. Anyway, a lot of her ideas. So she's a positive law advocate. Now, positive law states that you have nothing except what the state gives you. So the state will give you the right to cross the street, to take your kids to school, to have children. If the state doesn't give you a right, you don't have a right, because the state is all powerful. That's not how the South African law works. That's not how Roman Dutch law works. That's not how our traditional our parliamentary system works. Our law works on the basis that you're allowed to do anything that you're not specifically disallowed. So unless our law states you may not do this, you can do it. As long as it doesn't impact on anybody else, you can do it. It's a much more it's not positive law. We don't rely on the law to tell us what we have to do. So our point is that if you're not a positive law advocate, we do have the right to own firearms, because the Constitution doesn't say I don't have the right to own firearms. So some off-the-cuff remark by a confused justice in the Constitutional Court means absolutely nothing in my life. It means nothing in any of our lives, because he doesn't have the power to make that a ruling. And it wasn't a ruling. It was an off-the-cuff remark. He wasn't asked to deliver judgment, and he didn't deliver judgment. There was no evidence led. There was no argument held. So therefore, there wasn't a judgment. It was a remark. It was like, morning, people. It's nice to see the sun out. You're not going to go and check that the sun's out. It's an off-the-cuff remark. Or I hope everybody's well. It means nothing. It's just a platitude. It's something you say. So I'm sorry, Justice Bronneman, but you overstepped your mark horribly, and you're wrong.
Sure. Quite a mouthful.
Yeah, sorry, I tend to do that.
Yeah, but it's because you're passionate about this, and that's good. And we all of us like pick the fruits of what you guys are doing. So we are thankful for your passion for this. Yeah, I want to know if there's any questions. You can drop some questions in the comments if there's any questions. I have a last question for Paul. So if I've went and I signed the petition, I've done my part. Is that correct?
Okay, so not all petitions are created equal. It's the South African parliamentary process recognizes certain forms of parliament of public participation. So it doesn't recognize petitions, for example, ones where it's got a question on the top and everybody signs and stuff like that. The South African law sees that as one response. If you've got a petition with 1 million names on it, counts for one. Doesn't count for 1 million, counts for one. Your public participation processes that are specifically designed for the South African process are things like the Dear South Africa campaign, which is it's a public participation campaign. So the Dear South Africa public participation campaign individually takes every single input that's given to it and delivers those in hard copy format and in electronic format to, in this case, the Secretary of Police. And I think that the last I heard, they were up to about 130,000. I think they're aiming, but they should get, because the public participation process has now been extended until the 2nd of August. I think they'll get up to 200,000, maybe 250,000. But then there's also the Institute of Race Relations, which has set up a public participation campaign that goes directly to Parliament, to the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee. I know that the DA has done, as a result of their highly successful firearms summit, which they held 2 weeks ago. They've also set up a public participation campaign, which will count, which will actually be handed to Parliament and will be recorded and will be and the people must respond to. That's the important thing, is actually forcing to be able to say to them afterwards, okay, so what did you do with my input? No, it went into the bin. No, you can't. You have to pay attention to. I'm a South African citizen. You're my representative. Whether you're my party's representative or not, it's got nothing to do with it. You're my representative in government. You have to account to me for looking after my interests.
Yeah.
What did you do? And these public participation campaigns that we've look, it's great to sign every petition you can see, but do all the important stuff ones first. The stuff that's not important, well, that can be sure, because I feel like venting, or I'm wanting to express support or something like that. Go for it. I don't mind. But for God's sakes, do the important ones first. The Dear South Africa, the IRR, and the DA's campaign. For God's sakes, get onto those things first. Then play around with as many online polls as you like. It doesn't matter. They don't do any harm, except when people haven't done the proper ones first, because then people sit back and say, well, yeah, I've done my bit. Don't worry, I signed the petition straight away. Yeah, but it didn't do anything. It makes you feel good about yourself, but it doesn't really help.
Definitely. So Marcus says all the criminals have guns. What is the plan about that? So I don't think we can really make plans about the criminal guns.
Well, the police certainly can't. That's out of their hands. The police have no idea how to deal with the criminals' firearms, unless the guys are stupid criminals and they somehow stumble into a police roadblock, or they get caught in possession of the firearm in some way. Those guns just carry on. They get handed down, or they get and when they the fascinating thing 3-4 weeks ago, on I think it was on Cape Talk, or one of the shows in the Cape. So this guy comes on. He says, "No, but I was arrested last week. So I was just being he was on the courtroom steps in the Cape Court, and he said, I was arrested last week." He said, "But I was arrested with 2 guns. Now they've just presented 1 gun here in evidence against me. It said I had 1 gun." He said, "But I had 2. He says, "But so the police have sold my other gun already to my enemies who are going to attack me tonight with my own gun." And that's unfortunately exactly what it is. That's exactly how it is. The police are a conduit for providing firearms to criminals. They've proven this over and over again. They are the single largest supplier of firearms to the criminals.
I also heard, I think it's Gun Free South Africa that says, but if we take away all the firearms, then the criminals also get access to the firearms. So if we
Yeah.
take it away from the private citizens, the criminals won't have access to firearms.
Firearms last a hell of a long time, eh? Firearms are durable. I mean, speak to the collectors. They've got guns from the 1800s that are still perfectly functional. You can still shoot somebody with them. So even ammunition is durable. I mean, I've got some ammunition from out of the Second World War that we still use, some 303 ammo, which is still loaded with strings of cordite instead of gunpowder in it. Instead of nitrocellulose propellant, it's got cordite in it. It's usually corrosive and stuff, but it still shoots. So these things are very durable. So how many decades or hundreds of years are we going to have to wait until all of the criminal guns and all of the ammunition in criminals' hands is expended? In the meantime, society sits with no protection because the police can't protect you anymore. In fact, the police are calling on the private citizens and private security companies to protect them, for heaven's sakes. I mean, as I say, this last 48 hours has been bizarre. The whole world's been turned upside down.
Yeah. All right. So thank you, Paul, so much for your time.
Great pleasure.
We really had some insightful conversation here, and we hope this video goes far and wide so that people will sign the correct bill and or the correct petition and not just sign your name and surname somewhere. So I will also have the Dear South Africa link in the comments. I will post it for you guys there. Please go and sign the proper platforms that will actually get submitted. So we thank you so much for your time, Paul, and
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eugene. Thanks, Leonie. Thanks, listeners.
Bye.
Bye-bye.